be chance.
So it's basically looking at the probability of these things occurring. It suggests that there ought to be a God. Is that what you're saying?
It leads you to, if you look at science, it can only lead you, or the perfectness of this world, the fact that everything is, even in the galaxy, is fine-tuned to the minutest of details. And in fact, for example, if the cosmological tangent is fine-tuned to approximately 120 decimal places, and if it was even 1 decimal place less, the universe would have collapsed on itself long time ago. So the fact is, all of these arguments, as Ayasab also mentioned, or the cause and effect argument, all these arguments lead you to the point where you think that there should be a creator. And this is what the Promised Messiah ﷺ mentioned as well. But the fact that will take you to that one step further and enable you to realize that there is a creator, that's communion with God and revelation. And we see that in the life of the Promised Messiah throughout. And a whole book is compiled of his revelations. And some of them are extraordinary. For example, I'll just mention one, the bubonic plague that was struck in the late 19th century, towards the end of the 1800s. In 1898, the Promised Messiah saw in a dream that he sees people planting, really horrific looking trees, which are black in color. And when he asks, I'm just paraphrasing the revelation, when he asks, what are these trees? He says, the people respond that these are the trees of plague, which will burst in the Punjab and overtake the whole country. So this is a revelation that the Promised Messiah immediately published. Now, someone may say that we know from historical evidence that the plague actually was reaching India at that time anyway, because it had started in somewhere along near China, and it was moving its way down as the plague spreads anyway. But the fact is that something even more incredible happened afterwards. In 1902, God Almighty told the Promised Messiah ﷺ, there's a revelation that Inni uhafizu kulla min fid dar, that I will protect every single person who is in your household, not just physical household, but your spiritual household. Now, for the fact that in this time period, 4 or 5 years, not a single Ahmadi or a single person who ascribes or follows the Promised Messiah ﷺ passes away due to the plague, it's quite an incredible feat, especially if we know that the plague does not, it attacks at random. The plague doesn't have a mind of its own that, I'll target all the people who are non-Ahmadis, for example.
And even if it did, that would be a proof of the existence of God too.
Exactly, that would be another proof. So that's just one prophecy that I've mentioned out of several hundred. And remember, at the time, the opponents of the Promised Messiah were looking for even the smallest bit of ammunition that they could use against him. So this is just one of the
key. That point is key. That for an individual to make a prophecy which is beyond the available data which is present in front of him, to the extent that someone could say that this person has deduced certain events to make a prophecy, for someone to make a prophecy which is above and beyond that, to the extent that we have to admit that only a higher being gave him that information, and then he publishes that in advance, that's huge proof of the existence of God.
Revelation is a key method of deducing and ascertaining with certainty that there is a living God.